Dr. Jessica Mitchell wiped the sweat from her brow, squinting through the shimmering heat waves rising from the Nevada desert. The crystalline environmental suit of her Sixtheri colleague Vector gleamed in the harsh sunlight, its adaptive coating working overtime to maintain the aliens' preferred temperature. Around them, the excavation site sprawled across the desert floor like an archaeologist's dream, with neat grid patterns carved into the sand revealing hints of metal and concrete beneath. Fascinating primitive architecture, Vector chittered, his translator converting the sounds into standard English. The chemical residues here match perfectly with your species' early space program attempts. The alien archaeologist waved one of his 4 arms at the massive blast door they'd uncovered, his containment suit sparkling with each movement. Jessica nodded, keeping her face carefully neutral. The Nevada testing range was crucial to our early military development, she said, letting just enough pride seep into her voice to seem natural. She ran her hand along the door's edge, noting how the dust patterns didn't quite match natural accumulation. Someone had been here recently, though you'd need specialized training in Earth weather patterns to notice. The rest of Galactic Archaeological Team 7 moved around them with the practiced efficiency of professionals who'd worked together for years. Their hover platforms carried scanning equipment that the Commonwealth considered standard issue, and that Jessica knew missed about 30% of what they should be detecting. Energy signatures consistent with chemical propulsion storage, announced Dr. Kira Williams, her voice carrying a hint of excitement that made Jessica tense slightly. Kira was brilliant, but occasionally too observant for comfort, though there's something odd about the decay rates. Vector glided over to examine Kira's readings. Likely degradation from your planet's unique magnetic field, he said dismissively. We've seen similar anomalies at other Earth sites. His secondary eyes blinked in what Jessica had learned was a gesture of academic satisfaction. It's remarkable how quickly your species abandoned these crude methods once we introduced you to proper gravitics. Jessica made a sound of agreement while checking her wrist display. Her security clearance had just quietly upgraded itself again, the 5th time this month. She'd been expecting it. They were getting close to Sector 7. Dr. Mitchell called out technical specialist Robert Hayes from near the blast door's control panel. I think we found a way to power up the original opening mechanism. Want to do the honors? She walked over, boots crunching on the sun-baked ground. The control panel looked appropriately aged, with faded buttons and worn metal that perfectly matched a facility abandoned 50 years ago. She knew for a fact it had been replaced last month. Remarkable preservation, Vector noted, hovering nearby. Your planet's low humidity in this region must have helped maintain the infrastructure. His secondary eyes narrowed. Though I'm surprised your government never repurposed this location for civilian use. Budget constraints, Jessica said with a carefully crafted shrug. After joining the Commonwealth, it was cheaper to build new facilities than retrofit old ones. She pressed the sequence of buttons that would trigger the door's ancient hydraulic systems. The grinding sound that followed was perfectly calibrated to suggest decades of disuse. The massive door slowly swung open, releasing a burst of stale air that made the aliens' environmental suits flicker as they adjusted. Beyond lay a long corridor, its walls lined with what appeared to be outdated computer systems and power conduits. Perfect preservation, Vector exclaimed, all 4 arms gesturing excitedly. This will provide invaluable insight into humanity's technological progression. Jessica watched the alien archaeological team rush forward with their scanning equipment, already cataloging and analyzing. Only Kira hesitated, frowning at her readings. The dust patterns seem odd, Kira muttered. Almost like, probably interference from the old power systems, Jessica interrupted smoothly. These places used some pretty strange shielding techniques. She gestured toward a promising-looking side corridor, drawing Kira's attention away from the subtle signs of recent maintenance. As the team moved deeper into the facility, Jessica activated her neural implant's secure channel. Control, this is Mitchell. They've reached level 1. Right on schedule. The response came back in a burst of encrypted data that her Commonwealth colleagues would have assumed was static. Acknowledged. Maintain course. Facility Delta is awakening. Deep below their feet, behind walls designed to fool every sensor the Commonwealth had ever invented, something vast and patient stirred in the darkness. The games would continue, but not for much longer. Colonel James Harrison stood in the facility's hidden command center, his reflection ghosting across a wall of holographic displays. Each screen showed a different angle of the alien archaeological team as they moved through the carefully prepared upper levels. He focused particularly on Dr. Mitchell's feed, watching her subtle hand signals that conveyed far more than her pleasant archaeological chatter. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah Cooper's voice came from the monitoring station. "Dr. Williams is approaching Junction 7 Alpha again." That's the third time she circled back to check the quantum dating anomalies. Harrison nodded, unsurprised. They'd known Dr. Kira Williams would be a potential complication when they vetted the archaeological team. Her record showed an almost supernatural talent for spotting patterns, exactly the kind of mind that might notice the careful deception they'd maintained for 50 years. "Deploy Maintenance Team Charlie," he ordered, keeping his voice calm. Standard Protocol 7. On the screens, a group of repair technicians began making their way through the maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the facility's walls. They would trigger another carefully calibrated equipment malfunction, just enough to disrupt the quantum dating scans without seeming suspicious. Colonel, his XO, Major David Reynolds, stepped up beside him. Latest report from engineering. The lower chambers are fully pressurized, and the launch systems are at 97% readiness. Harrison allowed himself a small smile. Right on schedule. The Drachnid fleet crossed the Arcturus line yesterday. They'll be within strategic range within 3 months. On the main screen, Dr. Williams was showing Vector another set of anomalous readings. The Zixtheri archaeologist waved them off with his usual academic condescension, but Harrison could see the growing frustration in Williams' posture. "Sir," Cooper's voice held a note of concern. "Dr. Mitchell's neural patterns are showing elevated stress. Dr. Williams just shared a theory about the facility's power grid maintenance patterns." Harrison watched as Mitchell smoothly redirected the conversation, pointing out some fascinating archaeological feature in the opposite direction. She was good, one of their best, but the strain of maintaining the deception was starting to show. "Prepare contingency Echo 3, he ordered. "If Williams gets too close, we'll need to orchestrate a complete shutdown of that section." He paused, studying the feeds, "and alert Dr. Mitchell. Tell her she has authorization for limited revelation protocols if absolutely necessary." The command center hummed with quiet efficiency as his orders were relayed. On the screens, Maintenance Team Charlie reached their position. Right on cue, the archaeological team's quantum dating equipment began showing increasingly erratic readings. "Environmental interference," Vector declared confidently. "This region's unique mineral composition often affects Commonwealth scanning technology." Harrison watched Dr. Williams' face carefully. She wasn't buying it, but she also couldn't prove anything was wrong. The frustration was clear in her tense shoulders and tight grip on her scanning equipment. A subtle vibration passed through the command center's floor, so faint that even most humans wouldn't have noticed it. Harrison checked the time. Right on schedule. The midnight shift was rotating the massive launch cradles in the chambers below, maintaining their readiness with the same relentless precision that had kept humanity's secret for half a century. "Movement in Sector 12, Cooper reported. "Dr. Mitchell is steering them away from the primary access shaft." Harrison nodded approvingly. Mitchell had caught the vibration too and was already working to distract the team. He made a mental note to recommend her for commendation once this was all over. "Sir," Reynolds said quietly. "Message from Fleet Command. The 7th Battle Group has completed their final integration tests. All systems nominal." "Excellent." Harrison studied the wall of screens, watching their careful deception play out. 50 years of playing technological backwater, maintaining just enough of our primitive technology to seem charmingly stubborn. And they never once wondered why we kept our old launch facilities in working order. A new alert flashed across his neural link. The Drachnid fleet had just conquered another Commonwealth system. Their energy shields had proven impenetrable to standard Commonwealth weapons, just as intelligence had predicted. "How much longer do we need to maintain the charade?" Reynolds asked. Harrison checked the mission clock on his display. 3 more months, just long enough for them to get overconfident. He smiled thinly. Then we'll show them why humanity never fully abandoned the art of throwing rocks. Deep below, in chambers shielded by technology that merged human ingenuity with Commonwealth science, row upon row of kinetic kill vehicles waited in their cradles. The Drachnid fleet's energy shields were optimized against lasers and plasma weapons. They had never been designed to stop tungsten rods moving at relativistic speeds. The game would end soon. But for now, they had to maintain the illusion of humanity's quaint technological regression, one careful deception at a time. Admiral Emily Walker kept her hands folded calmly in her lap as the Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. The holographic displays floating above the central podium showed the latest casualty reports from the Proxima sector. Another Commonwealth fleet reduced to scattered debris by the advancing Drachnid armada. Their shield technology is beyond anything we've encountered. The Zixtheri High Commander's image flickered as he gestured with all 4 arms. Our most advanced energy weapons barely register on their defense screens. Defense Secretary Marcus Rodriguez, seated beside Walker, maintained the same carefully neutral expression she'd seen him practice in countless simulations. They'd prepared for this moment for decades, calibrating every reaction to appear concerned but not alarmed. Perhaps the Malorian representative's crystalline form chimed. If we diverted more resources to upgrading our plasma cannon yields. "We've already tried that," snapped the Centaurian admiral, his feathered crest flaring with agitation. "The Drachnid shields simply adapt. It's like they've spent centuries preparing for exactly this type of warfare." Walker caught Rodriguez's subtle glance. They had, of course. The Drachnid Empire had evolved their technology specifically to counter the Commonwealth's reliance on energy-based weapons. It was a brilliant strategy, assuming your opponents only used energy weapons. Earth's colonies lie directly in the invasion path. The Council President's thunderous voice cut through the chaos. His massive Jovian form turned toward the human delegation. "Admiral Walker, surely you must have some proposal for evacuating your populations." Walker stood, her movements unhurried. "The United Earth government appreciates the Council's concern," she said, using the measured tones that had been carefully chosen to project calm competence rather than military prowess. "However, we believe our current defensive preparations will prove adequate." A ripple of dismissive murmurs swept through the chamber. Walker catalogued each reaction, noting which species seemed contemptuous and which showed the first flickers of curiosity about humanity's apparent confidence. "Adequate." The Zixtheri High Commander's translator barely contained his incredulity. "Your primary defense fleet still uses chemical propulsion systems. We've detected your ships conducting defensive exercises with ballistic weapons." He waved a diagnostic hologram into existence. "These readings suggest you're still manufacturing tungsten-based munitions. We find value in maintaining certain traditional technologies," Rodriguez offered mildly. "They provide redundancy in our defense planning." The Drachnid ambassador, who had been silent until now, shifted in his acceleration couch. His species' legendary intuition seemed to be picking up something in the human's demeanor that the others missed. His scaled throat flushed with warning colors. "The Drachnid Empire," he said carefully, "has studied humanity's military capabilities extensively. Your continued reliance on primitive projectile weapons is charming," Walker suggested, allowing herself a small smile. "Quaint. Adorably stubborn." The chamber's automatic translators struggled to capture the complex harmonics of the Drachnid's response. "Concerning," he finally managed. Walker met his gaze steadily. The Drachnid's secondary eyes widened slightly as he finally recognized what he was seeing. Not the desperate bravado of a primitive species, but the patient stillness of a predator. The United Earth government formally offers military assistance to the Commonwealth, she declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. We believe our traditional approaches might prove complementary to existing defensive strategies. Out of the question, the Malorian representative chimed dismissively. Your technology is generations behind the Drachnid fleet. We appreciate the offer, but we cannot risk diverting resources to protect outdated human ships. Walker inclined her head in apparent acceptance. She didn't need to look at Rodriguez to know he was suppressing the same grim smile she felt trying to surface. In a secure facility back on Earth, the readiness countdown had just ticked past another milestone. The Council moved on to debating evacuation protocols and shield harmonics. No one seemed to notice that the human delegation's apparent dejection didn't quite reach their eyes. No one except the Drachnid ambassador, whose scales had taken on the pale coloration his species displayed when confronting an unknown threat. He alone seemed to understand the true significance of humanity's offer. They weren't asking for protection. They were offering it. And somehow that was far more terrifying than any display of panic would have been. Dr. Kira Williams had always trusted patterns more than people. Numbers didn't lie, and data didn't play politics. That's why she couldn't ignore the impossible readings her quantum dating equipment kept showing, no matter how many times Vector dismissed them as environmental interference. She waited until the rest of the archaeological team had moved ahead, following Dr. Mitchell down another carefully curated corridor of primitive human technology. The maintenance crews had just finished their third round of repairs on their scanning equipment, but Kira had managed to preserve one set of readings they hadn't caught. This doesn't make sense, she muttered, crouching to examine a section of flooring that showed signs of recent wear. The patterns were wrong, too regular, too precise, like something massive had been moved through here on a schedule. A shadow fell across her scanner. Finding anything interesting, Doctor? Lieutenant Ryan Cooper's voice was perfectly pleasant, but Kira noticed he had positioned himself between her and the rest of the team. Actually, yes. Kira stood slowly, deciding to test a theory. These wear patterns suggest regular heavy transport through this section. Recent transport. She watched Cooper's face carefully. Strange for an abandoned facility, wouldn't you say? Cooper's smile never wavered. Old facilities settle in unusual ways. The Nevada substrate is particularly. A deep vibration cut through the floor, so subtle she would have missed it if she hadn't been paying attention. Cooper's hand twitched toward his communication device, just for a moment. That wasn't settling, Kira said quietly. And those aren't environmental interference patterns on our scanners, are they? Before Cooper could respond, a new tremor shook the facility. Stronger this time, accompanied by a low hum that seemed to come from somewhere far below. The lights flickered, and for just a moment, Kira's scanner picked up something impossible. A massive energy signature, deeper underground than their survey suggested the facility went. Security breach in Section 7. A voice crackled over Cooper's comm. The containment field is fluctuating. Cooper's pleasant facade vanished. Emergency Protocol Echo 3. He snapped into his comm. Full lockdown now. He grabbed Kira's arm, surprisingly gentle despite the urgency. Dr. Williams, I need you to come with me. Quickly. The facility's lighting shifted to a deep red. Ahead, Kira could hear Vector's confused chittering as more security personnel seemed to materialize from hidden doors, smoothly surrounding the archaeological team. What's happening? Kira demanded as Cooper led her toward what looked like a solid wall, until it slid aside to reveal a hidden elevator. What are you hiding down there? Dr. Williams, a new voice spoke. Colonel James Harrison stepped out of the elevator, his uniform bearing insignia Kira had never seen before. What you're about to see is classified under Protocol Omega. Your cooperation is appreciated, but not strictly necessary. Another tremor shook the facility, stronger than before. This time, Kira definitely heard the sound of massive machinery moving below. The Drachnid fleet is 3 months out, Harrison continued calmly. We had hoped to maintain the deception until they were committed to their attack vector. But your persistence has forced an acceleration of our timeline. The elevator descended faster than Kira's stomach was comfortable with, dropping far deeper than any scan had suggested possible. When the doors opened, she found herself staring at a sight that redefined everything she thought she knew about human technological development. A vast underground chamber stretched for kilometers, its ceiling lost in the darkness above. Row after row of massive ships stood in elaborate cradles, their hulls bristling with weapon systems that merged Commonwealth gravitic technology with what she now realized was hardly primitive human engineering. "Welcome to Thunder Fleet," Harrison said quietly. "Humanity's answer to the question we knew the galaxy would eventually ask. What happens when energy shields meet good old-fashioned kinetic bombardment at relativistic speeds?" Kira watched as maintenance crews swarmed over the nearest vessel, its hybrid drives pulsing with power that her scanner couldn't even classify. "You've been playing us all along," she whispered. Every dismissed technology, every outdated system, was carefully maintained, improved, and integrated with Commonwealth advances. Harrison's smile held no humor. The Drachnid Empire built their defenses to stop energy weapons. They never considered they might need to stop tungsten rods moving at 30% of light speed. Above them, the rest of the archaeological team was being quietly evacuated, their memories of the tremors already being explained away by convenient equipment malfunctions. But Kira knew the truth now. And somewhere in orbit, humanity's enemies were about to learn it too. Commander Alexandra Foster stood in Earth's hidden command center, watching the destruction of New Alexandria unfold across the tactical displays. The Commonwealth colony's defenses, considered state-of-the-art by Galactic standards, lasted exactly 7 minutes against the Drachnid assault. Their energy shields collapsed under sustained bombardment, and their plasma batteries might as well have been firing confetti for all the good they did against Drachnid defenses. New Alexandria has fallen. The Commonwealth Emergency Channel crackled, requesting immediate evacuation support. Their ground forces air. The transmission cut off in static. "Launch clock," Foster asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. 2 hours until optimal deployment window," Lieutenant Michael Chen reported from his station. "All silos report ready status. Thunder Fleet assets are in position and awaiting final authorization." Foster nodded, watching another tactical display where Commonwealth ships fled from the advancing Drachnid fleet. The enemy's confidence was obvious in their formation. They weren't even bothering to maintain proper combat spacing anymore. Why should they? Their shields had proven impenetrable to every weapon the Commonwealth had thrown at them. Message from the Drachnid command ship. Communications Officer Sarah Rodriguez announced. "They're demanding Earth's immediate surrender. They say they'll." She paused, checking the translation. "Show mercy to such an obviously primitive world if we submit without resistance." A soft chuckle rippled through the command center. Foster allowed herself a small smile. "Send them our standard response. The one about maintaining our neutrality and lacking sufficient transport capability to evacuate. They've already started jamming Commonwealth frequencies," Chen reported. "Standard energy-based communications are being blocked across 3 sectors. Good thing we kept all those obsolete hardline systems in place," Foster said. She activated her quantum-encrypted link to the Nevada facility. "Status report." Dr. Kira Williams' voice came through clearly. One advantage of using technology the Drachnids weren't even looking for. "Final calibrations are complete, Commander. Dr. Mitchell sends her regards from launch control," she says. Williams paused, and Foster could hear the smile in her voice. "She says the archaeological team's data on Drachnid shield harmonics was very helpful." Foster checked the mission clock again. The Drachnid fleet was advancing exactly as predicted, their formation spreading out to encompass Earth's orbital space. They were probably expecting another futile display of energy weapons, followed by a quick surrender. Multiple Commonwealth distress calls. Rodriguez reported. Their refugee ships are being targeted. The Drachnids aren't bothering with disabling shots anymore. Foster's hands tightened on her console. Time to show them why humanity never abandoned the art of throwing rocks. Signal all Thunder Fleet assets. Operation Sledgehammer is now in effect. Across Earth's solar system, hidden installations began powering up. Beneath the Nevada desert, massive launch doors prepared to open for the first time in decades. In bases hidden under mountains, oceans, and Arctic ice, crews took their stations at hybrid drive controls that merged human innovation with Commonwealth science. Drachnid fleet has crossed the lunar orbit, Chen announced. Their shields are at maximum power, energy weapon configuration consistent with previous encounters. Foster watched the enemy fleet's formation with predatory satisfaction. They had positioned themselves perfectly to counter an attack by Commonwealth energy weapons, and in doing so, they'd created ideal firing lanes for what was coming. They're broadcasting surrender terms again, Rodriguez said. Their commander is offering to spare our quaint chemical rockets if we stand down immediately. Send them our acknowledgement, Foster ordered. Let them think we're considering their generous offer. She switched to the Thunder Fleet command channel. All batteries. Confirm targeting solutions. Prepare for mass driver activation on my mark. Acknowledgements flooded in from across the solar system as humanity's hidden forces reported ready status. The Drachnid fleet hung in high orbit, their energy shields gleaming with power, completely unaware that they had just positioned themselves at the optimal range for kinetic bombardment. Foster took a deep breath. Let's remind the galaxy why humans have always been good at hitting things very, very hard. Thunder Fleet. Execute Operation Sledgehammer. Release the thunder. Director Thomas Anderson strode into the emergency council session as alarms blared through the station's corridors. The chamber's holographic displays showed the Drachnid fleet approaching Earth, their formation a textbook example of energy shield deployment. Around him, council representatives argued frantically about evacuation protocols and shield harmonics. Director Anderson, the council president's massive Jovian form loomed over the central podium. The Drachnid fleet will reach Earth within the hour. We've assembled an emergency response fleet, but given your limited defensive capabilities, we recommend immediate evacuation. Anderson placed a small quantum drive on the podium. Before we discuss evacuation, there's something you should see. He activated the device, and a new hologram sprang to life in the chamber center. This is a live feed from Earth's lunar observation posts. The council chamber fell silent as the image resolved into a clear view of Earth's orbital space. The Drachnid fleet hummed there in attack formation, their energy shields creating a breathtaking aurora against the backdrop of space. As you can see, Anderson continued calmly, we've maintained certain technological paths that the Commonwealth considered obsolete. The hologram shifted, revealing massive launch facilities opening across Earth's surface. Those primitive chemical rockets you've been dismissing for 50 years. We never stopped improving them. The Drachnid ambassador's scales paled as new signatures appeared on the tactical display. Hidden bases across the solar system were powering up, revealing ships and weapons platforms that merged Commonwealth gravitics with advanced human engineering. Impossible, the Zixtheri High Commander chittered. Our surveys showed only basic chemical propulsion and projectile weapons. Exactly what we wanted them to show, Anderson smiled. We learned something interesting when we joined the Commonwealth. Everyone had abandoned kinetic weapons in favor of energy-based systems. Nobody even bothered defending against simple projectiles anymore. The hologram zoomed in on one of Earth's vessels as it emerged from a hidden lunar facility. Its hull bristled with what looked like oversized mass drivers, but the power signatures they emitted made the Commonwealth sensors short out. You see, Anderson continued, pacing around the hologram. While you were perfecting energy weapons, we were combining your gravitic technology with our expertise in throwing very heavy objects very fast. Those tungsten rods the archaeological teams kept finding in our obsolete refineries. They're now capable of reaching 30% of light speed. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The Drachnid ambassador rose from his acceleration couch, his secondary eyes fixed on the tactical display. "You've been planning this since you joined the Commonwealth," he said slowly. "Every dismissed technology, every outdated system, was carefully maintained and improved." Anderson nodded. "Your energy shields are remarkable against energy weapons, but they were never designed to stop physical impacts at relativistic speeds." New alerts flashed across the chamber's displays as Commander Foster's voice came through the emergency channel. "Thunder Fleet reports ready status. All kinetic battery platforms showing green. Operation Sledgehammer is commencing." The Council watched in stunned silence as humanity's hidden fleet moved into position. Massive accelerator rings powered up across the solar system, their hybrid drives combining chemical thrust with Commonwealth gravitics in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "We're transmitting tactical data to all Commonwealth vessels," Anderson announced. "I suggest you update your targeting systems to account for kinetic strike capabilities." He turned to the Drachnid ambassador. "Your fleet has exactly 10 minutes to retreat beyond lunar orbit. After that, we demonstrate why humanity never fully abandoned the art of throwing rocks." The hologram showed the Drachnid fleet's formation wavering as they detected the power signatures of weapons they had never been designed to counter. Their perfect energy shield formation, optimized against plasma and laser fire, had inadvertently placed them in ideal positions for kinetic bombardment. 50 years, the Malorian representative chimed in disbelief. "You spent 50 years letting us think you were technologically backward." Anderson's smile held no humor. "We spent 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. Your energy weapons were elegant, but sometimes the simplest solution is still the best. Hit something hard enough, and no shield can stop it." In Earth orbit, humanity's Thunder Fleet powered up their mass drivers. The art of war was about to receive a lesson in old-school physics. Captain Olivia Reynolds felt the deck vibrate beneath her feet as the massive launch doors of the Nevada facility cracked open for the first time in decades. Sunlight pierced the darkness, illuminating the sleek hull of the UES Thunderchild. Her crew worked with practiced efficiency at their stations, each movement rehearsed countless times for this exact moment. "All systems nominal," First Officer Jack Martinez reported from his station. "Hybrid drives showing green across the board. Mass driver batteries fully charged and ready for deployment." Through the bridge's quantum blast viewport, Reynolds watched as other launch facilities revealed themselves across the desert landscape. What had appeared to be abandoned military bases and mundane geological formations split open like blooming flowers of steel and composite materials. "Thunder Fleet Command, this is Thunderchild Actual," Reynolds transmitted. "Ready for synchronized launch sequence." "Confirmed, Thunderchild." Commander Foster's voice came through clearly despite the Drachnid jamming attempts. "All Thunder Fleet vessels, prepare for emergence. Show them what 50 years of patience looks like." Reynolds smiled as her tactical display lit up with signatures from across the solar system. Hidden bases on Mars, Europa, and Titan revealed their secrets. Beneath the ice of Europa, accelerator rings larger than cities powered up. In the rings of Saturn, weapon platforms disguised as mining operations oriented toward their targets. Mass driver targeting solutions locked, Weapons Officer Lisa Chen reported. Tungsten penetrators loaded and accelerator rings spooled. Gravitic assist systems standing by. The Thunderchild rose from its cradle on columns of blue flame, its hybrid drives combining the raw power of chemical propulsion with Commonwealth gravitics. What looked like primitive rocket exhaust to standard scanners was actually a sophisticated propulsion system that had evolved far beyond its origins. "They're detecting our emergence," Martins announced, monitoring the enemy fleet's reactions. Drachnid vessels adjusting shield configurations. They're optimizing for energy weapon deflection. Reynolds allowed herself a predatory grin. "Of course they are. That's all they've had to defend against for centuries." She opened a channel to all Thunder Fleet vessels. "Remember your training, people. We're about to remind the galaxy why humans never stopped studying the physics of hitting things very, very hard. Across Earth's surface, more vessels rose from their hidden berths. Each ship represented a perfect fusion of human innovation and Commonwealth science. What appeared to be simple mass drivers were actually hypervelocity weapons, capable of accelerating their projectiles to speeds that made traditional energy shields irrelevant. Multiple Commonwealth distress calls. Communications Officer Daniel Wright reported, "The Drachnid fleet is continuing their advance." There, he paused, his voice hardening. "They're targeting civilian evacuation ships." "Not for much longer," Reynolds said quietly. She turned to her crew. 50 years ago, humanity joined the Commonwealth. They gave us gravitics, energy shields, and plasma weapons. And we smiled and nodded, and kept right on developing what they thought were obsolete technologies. The Thunderchild's mass drivers hummed with power as they extended from their housing. The tungsten penetrators in their chambers had been refined using techniques that merged human metallurgy with Commonwealth molecular engineering. "Launch clock at T-minus 60 seconds, Martins announced. "All Thunder Fleet vessels report ready status." Reynolds watched the tactical display as the full might of humanity's hidden fleet revealed itself. Hundreds of ships, each armed with weapons that the Drachnid's sophisticated energy shields had never been designed to stop. "They thought we were stubborn," Reynolds addressed her crew. "Primitive. Stuck in our ways. They never asked why a species capable of learning Commonwealth technology would choose to maintain their obsolete systems." The launch clock ticked down as the Thunder Fleet moved into attack formation. 50 years of preparation, of careful deception and patient development, had led to this moment. "Now they learned the truth," Reynolds said, her voice carrying the weight of decades of preparation. "Show them why humanity never fully abandoned the art of kinetic warfare." Thunder Fleet. "Prepare to engage." Captain Olivia Reynolds watched as the Thunder Fleet executed its first coordinated maneuver. The Drachnid commander had taken the bait, pushing their fleet forward as humanity's ships appeared to retreat from Earth's orbit. Their formation was perfect for defending against energy weapons. "All ships in position," First Officer Martinez reported. "Mass drivers aligned and synchronized. Gravitational lensing effect is masking our targeting solutions. The Drachnid commander is broadcasting." Communications Officer Wright announced, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "They're calling our withdrawal the inevitable result of primitive technological development." Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. "Let's show them just how primitive we are." She opened the fleet-wide channel. "Thunder Fleet, this is Reynolds. Commence Operation Sledgehammer. Release the Thunder." Across the solar system, humanity's hidden weapons platforms powered up. What the Commonwealth had dismissed as mining operations and orbital debris suddenly revealed their true nature. The rings of Saturn lit up as accelerator platforms began their firing sequence. Mass drivers spinning up, Weapons Officer Chen reported. Gravitic assist systems online. Tungsten penetrators loaded and locked. The Thunderchild's hull thrummed with power as its hybrid drives engaged. What looked like simple chemical exhaust to Commonwealth sensors masked a propulsion system that merged the raw force of rocket science with gravitic technology. "Enemy shields at maximum power," Martinez called out. "They're still configured for energy weapon deflection." Reynolds nodded. "Execute firing solution Alpha 7. Show them why we never stopped studying basic physics." The first salvo of tungsten rods launched from the Thunder Fleet's mass drivers, accelerated by a combination of chemical propulsion, gravitic assists, and 50 years of human innovation. They'd reached velocities that turned simple metal into unstoppable force. The Drachnid Fleet's energy shields, optimized to deflect plasma and laser fire, might as well have been tissue paper. The first impacts struck their lead vessels like the hammer of God. Kinetic energy transformed the supposedly impenetrable shields into expanding clouds of plasma. "Direct hits confirmed," Chen reported, her voice steady despite the awesome destruction displayed on their screens. "Enemy shields they're completely ineffective against kinetic strikes at these velocities." The Drachnid fleet's perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Their commanders, trained for centuries to counter energy-based attacks, had no doctrine for dealing with physical projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. "They're attempting to reconfigure their shields," Martians announced. "But their systems aren't designed to handle kinetic impacts. They'd need to completely rebuild their shield geometry." Reynolds opened a channel to the Drachnid flagship. "This is Captain Reynolds of the Thunder Fleet. Perhaps now you understand why humanity maintained its primitive technologies." The Drachnid commander's response came through garbled with static and fear. "Impossible. Your species. You were supposed to be technologically inferior. We simply chose a different path," Reynolds replied. "While you perfected energy weapons, we combined your gravitic technology with our expertise in throwing very heavy objects very fast. Your shields might stop plasma, but they can't violate basic physics." The second wave of kinetic strikes demonstrated this principle with devastating clarity. Tungsten rods, accelerated to speeds that would have made Newton weep, transformed the vacuum of space into an abstract art piece of destruction. "Enemy fleet is attempting to retreat," Wright reported. They're broadcasting a general surrender on all Commonwealth frequencies." Reynolds watched as the mighty Drachnid armada, terror of the galaxy, fled from what they had dismissed as primitive weapons. 50 years of patience, of careful development and secret preparation had paid off in a single devastating engagement. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Ceasefire but maintain targeting solutions. Let's show them we can be civilized about this." As the thunder of humanity's response faded, the quantum comm lit up with messages from astonished Commonwealth observers. They had just witnessed the complete defeat of an unstoppable enemy by technology they had considered obsolete. "Send word to Earth Command," Reynolds said quietly. "The thunder has rolled, and the galaxy will never underestimate humanity's ingenuity again." In the silence that followed, surrounded by the debris of shattered Drachnid ships, the Thunder Fleet stood ready, a testament to humanity's patience, innovation, and the eternal truth that sometimes the simplest solution is still the best. Hit something hard enough, and no shield can stop it.